we wanted to start off by sharing the guiding principles of the plan. Our Capital Facilities Planning Committee has been meeting for several years, thinking about issues that have to do with the high school, the students' education and experience at the high school. We were actually very fortunate in 2009 to help the school district do a survey of the community, and the survey is not anecdotal, it's actually a statistically accurate survey. So they polled randomly, sampling through telephone calls, many members of the community, and the items in gray were the top 3 voices that we heard from the survey. So number 1, enhance the delivery of education services. Number 4, enhance campus security and safety. And then number 6, develop a budget cost model that is prudent. So make sure that taxpayers' money is being spent wisely and properly. ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities, so handicapped individuals have many challenges in this high school, getting from building to building. The building is an assemblage of smaller wings and earlier buildings that were connected. Building systems, the superintendent mentioned earlier, are beyond their serviceable life. They are antiquated. The front of the campus is fired through or heated through a steam system, as an example. Steam heating is an art. It's hard to find the mechanics that know how to operate and maintain those systems. They break down often, and that's just one of the examples. There's a lot of single pane glazing or windows, again, gas guzzlers. We want to make sure that the new building is energy efficient and is affordable in terms of the utilities that go back to the taxpayers. Campus and pedestrian circulation or vehicle circulation is another challenge on this campus. Again, because it was an assemblage of other buildings. MJM was originally a junior middle school. The roads are very circuitous. It's a challenge to monitor and supervise the campus, and it's a challenge to get around and maintain safety in terms of bus access, parent drop-offs, and students that are walking to campus. Just a quick snapshot in terms of comparing the conditions that we have today to the new and improved Kingston High School. One of the wonderful things that the superintendent and the new building principal, Adrian Manuel, have already implemented is the creation of a 9th grade academy. And these are the students that are most at risk in terms of failing out or becoming good, solid citizens in the high school campus and the high school population. Today, that 9th grade academy has been started in or initiated in the MJM building. So it's on a 3-story configuration because really we didn't have a choice about where to locate it. We're adapting it to the departmental configuration that's here at the high school today. The whole idea, and really what's going to affect the delivery of education services the most, is this idea of creating small learning communities. So to take our overall student population of 18 to 2,000 students and break it down into smaller populations of about 450 allows for the teachers and administrators that work with those students to have to engage them in a much more thoughtful way, and also for those students to mentor each other and to spend more time together as part of a community of 400 or 500 instead of a community of 2,000. Many of the classrooms that are in the existing high school building are below the SED's minimum standard. SED stands for State Education Department. And there's a minimum high school floor area requirement for a classroom of 770 square feet. 40 to 50% of the classrooms today are below that minimum standard. I have a slide that I'll explain some of the issues that revolve around that. Of course, in the new high school, 100% of the classrooms would meet or exceed that standard. In terms of the area per student, today it's about 145 square feet per student, and 200 square feet is much more in the norm for a school district of this size and caliber. Today there are over 30 building entrances. Again, because the school was assembled through different disparate building wings that were connected, the proposed building will have about a dozen entrances. You'll see that there are no dead ends, that the wings all loop back on each other, an enhancement of both supervision as well as safety for those that are operating the school. And I already talked about how difficult it is to manage pedestrian and vehicle circulation on the campus. The new plan will greatly simplify that. On the left is what I refer to as the old classroom. You see that the teacher stands in the front, and there's a grid of desks, individual pupil desks, about 550 to 650 square feet. That's very typical of the classroom size at MJM. Almost none of the classrooms in that building meet today's standard. In a modern classroom, there are computers, there are round tables where students can engage in collaborative learning. Tables are typically in clusters where students can mentor each other and the teacher can affect that mentoring. When you add in the technology and the new learning models, the old classroom really doesn't pass muster and it's really too small. This next slide shows the existing conditions of the Broadway campus today at the high school. All the way on the left is the Maine building, the Carnegie Library that's now a new multi-purpose performance arts learning center has already been renovated. The Kate Walton Fieldhouse, Weston Tobin, MJM, and so on. So in this plan, both MJM and Weston Tobin are slated for demolition to sort of demolish those disparate wings of the school that are connected through bridges and ups and down stairs and so on. Will really make way for an opportunity to do an enhanced floor plan. We also note that today from the bus drop-off, there's this antiquated metal canopy system. It's old, it's rusty. When you and I went to school, we had a raincoat when we got off the bus. And in the new, the new plan, the bus area will be directly accessible to the new school wing. So we think that old canopy can be demolished. You heard Dr. Padalino talk about the education corridor that's emerging in Midtown here. Ulster Community College coming and taking over Sophie Finn is a wonderful, great thing that's happening. They'll have their own portion of the campus on the south side. On the north side, of course, is the high school proper. The areas in ochre or yellow color is the new academic wing that's proposed that would be in addition to the high school. Maine, of course, would remain. There are improvements proposed to the Fieldhouse. And one of the great things opportunities that's created by demolishing MJM is that we can now have a really simple access driveway between O'Reilly and Andrew Street. So you can see this opportunity for buses to stack and drop off, to have a proper access plaza where 1,000 students can gather on their way in or on their way out of the high school. In contrast to that, the main building would have its facades rehabilitated and repointed. The ceremonial steps would be removed and improved and upgraded. The landscaping that's grown up in front of the building that doesn't allow daylight to get onto the building would be removed. So the idea is to celebrate the history, to really improve the old building, but also have a modern 21st century high school experience that would happen on the south side. The next series of slides are floor plan diagrams that go through the entire 4 levels of the proposed high school. On the left are example images of new learning environments that our office has designed that came out of our library. And so while I'm talking about the proposed high school improvements, you can see on the left some of the imagery that comes along with that. So this is the main level. If you were coming on to the from Broadway, walking up through the ceremonial lawn, up through the main ceremonial entrance onto Main. High school administration, Adrian Suite would be in this area. A student services and wellness wing would be in this location on the west side. The Kate Walton Fieldhouse would be improved, and there is a new entrance lobby with an elevator so that both floors of the Fieldhouse would be accessible to those with disabilities. But the other thing is that this is a community asset in a community building. There should be a proper entrance from Andrew Street on this location so that community members can park and get into the Fieldhouse. There is a restoration of the swimming pool locker rooms that's proposed, other improvements to the swimming pool itself to make it ADA accessible. There are improvements proposed to the Fieldhouse or the performance gymnasium. It will be air conditioned as part of this plan, so this is a space that can accommodate 2,500 occupants. You can have the entire student population of faculty, visiting parents, and so on. And this was the space that we had selected we had recommended as the most important to be air conditioned. And then there's a portion at the rear of the Fieldhouse that would be demolished and a new fitness center would be proposed in its place. And that fitness center would have a direct visual link to the proposed synthetic turf field. Again, this is a mini half field for practice. Today we're busing students to Dietz Stadium. We would still have Dietz Stadium and it would be used for all the needs that we currently need it for, but to have that practice field on the campus is also important. So moving now behind the main building, Salmann would actually be at its ground level, would be converted into an expanded dining center and student commons. It's a space for student exhibition as well as performance art and so on. So The main kitchen would remain. We wouldn't propose tampering with that. It's a functioning kitchen and works for the school. And then on the east and west sides of the Salmann Building would be the new core academic spaces. The small SLC stands for Small Learning Community. This is the upper level of the first community and the upper level of the second small learning community. Moving now to the lower level, you see the lower level of those two communities, and then the lower level of Maine. This would have maker space or studio art space. Maker spaces are hybrids of engineering, technology, mathematics, and art spaces. Moving now to the third level, we have the beginning of the small learning community number 4, and then small learning community number 3 is the only one of the 4 that would be on its own level. We haven't come to resolution yet, but it may be that this is the small learning community that wants to be the freshman academy. We're talking with administration about that. And then the last floor is on the west academic wing is the top floor of small learning community number 4. The complement of learning spaces that's in each small learning community, there are 13 general classrooms, a complement of science labs and prep spaces, special education spaces, a health classroom, there's an instructional breakout area, and so on. And perhaps most importantly, each small learning community has its own principal and administrative group. And the idea is that this is a school within a school. So I'm part of a group of 400 or 500 and also part of a community of 2,000. And the idea is that we're also talking, and actually if you go to the school district's website for the high school, you can click on the small learning communities webpage, and the principal Adrian has written a wonderful piece about the small learning communities and the different options that are out there. Next, looking at construction delivery. Item 1 is to begin work on the east side of the campus, building the first small learning community, the new academic wing, as well as renovations to the Fieldhouse. The idea is that this new wing would create the swing space so that other wings in the building could be vacated. So there are no temporary classrooms needed for this plan. All of the swing space is self-contained within the development of the plan. Item 2 in the fall of 2017 would be to effect the renovations of Salmann, as well as the construction of the west side academic wing. And then number 3 in the fall of 18 to complete the renovations to the main building, and then to take the MJM offline and demolish it. There are many improvements proposed to the site. A lot of them have to do with being a good neighbor. There are drainage issues that call for correction to make sure that we're keeping our water on our campus, as an example. There's landscaping, there's repaving, new curbs, improvements to parking and access. There's also site improvements, including the all-weather synthetic turf field that I described earlier, improving site lighting, again, making sure that safety is number 1 on our list. And then there are some deteriorated walkways and so on that are proposed for rehab. The total of the bond cost for site improvements is $5 million. Moving on now to Maine. The plan calls for a rehabilitation of the mechanical plant, the piping, and the terminal units. Those are the equipment within the classrooms that provide the heating and the ventilation. So those would be replaced. A portion, we've tried to be very surgical in developing the cost. So where light renovation is required, meaning essentially cosmetic improvements and so on, we've got about 19,000 square feet of light, and then heavy renovations where program and subject changes are occurring, there's about 22,000 square feet. All of the bathrooms in Maine would be gut rehabilitated, so they're not ADA compliant, they're beyond their serviceable life, they're a challenge to keep clean and in a healthy manner. There are replacements of the portions of the roof at the main building, as well as the skylights, refurbishments to the existing elevator. And I'm not going to read every bullet line on the list, but you get the idea that every element of Maine will be touched. There's a painting program required for the entire interior of the building. On the energy side, we'll replace that antiquated steam heating plant with a modern system that's very energy efficient, that has a hydronic delivery method. There are replacements to the plumbing system, as well as classrooms and so on that I talked about earlier. There are a number of historic elements to the building, and those are also included for improvement on the list. So those two glorious skylights, when you come in through the main entrance to the school and look up on the right and the left where the main stairwell is, those were actually covered over with a skylight because they were leaking at one time. These are assets that are already there. Those covers need to be removed and some improvements made, and those can shine literally once again. So a substantial portion of the investment from the bond, $18.7 million, is for the main building. The Fieldhouse, I had talked about the new fitness center, and creating the entrance on the east side of the building for community access. A gut renovation of all the locker rooms. If you have a minute to visit the Fieldhouse, you can see for yourself what the conditions are there. Replacement of the gymnasium floor. The wood actually sits on the concrete right now. It is very old. A new modern floor would sit on wooden sleepers. It would enhance the competition level of the gym and just make for, I think, a much improved space. On the energy mechanical upgrade side, I've already discussed replacing the steam heating delivery system, as well as upgrades to the electric service, renovations to the plumbing, as well as the sprinkle system in the assembly space. Fieldhouse total is a little over $14 million. I'll also mention that these are total bond costs. They include every cost connected to the bond. The cost to make the blueprints, the cost to create the bonds, the cost for fees for engineering and for the construction manager. They're all for new furniture in the new construction spaces. They're all inclusive. There's no other hidden dollars or any other dollars that come forward other than the ones that we're presenting this evening. So in summary, certainly the lion's share of the cost, over $65 million, goes to the renovations and transformation of Salmann. That includes the new academic wing addition. When we add contingencies and other costs, we get to this $137.5 million that you've all heard about. We've developed a few artist renderings of the proposed project. One of the things that we're so proud of is that the city's already invested in the city hall in Midtown. The school district, through its taxpayers and so on, have already repositioned the Carnegie Library building. Maine is really the last piece to come online, and once you've effected that transformation, celebrating these old historic buildings in Midtown will be come to fruition. This is now a view from the south, so you're seeing this, and again, this is just a very preliminary artist renovation or animation of what the new school could look like, but you're seeing that simplified access road from O'Reilly to Andrew Street, the drop-off plaza, and the new main entry for buses. This is now from Andrew Street, and you're seeing the new fitness center, and then that access way to the elevator and into the to the Fieldhouse. We're also talking with administration about reclaiming the cupola from MJM and making it into a monument in the Flag Plaza that celebrates MJM's history, as well as the new south entrance to the school. So I hope you'll take away a couple of things from this presentation. Creating the small learning communities is extremely important. We're doing it today in the high school, but not in as an effective way as we could in a new building that's designed for that purpose. There are many, many systems and engineering systems and delivery systems within the building that are beyond their serviceable life. And if you take a look at some of the films and video clips that are available through the website, you can see those elements as we've surveyed them and gone on a tour. And then lastly, celebrating the history of Kingston and having a vision of education for the future is what this bond program is about. Thank you.
Thank you.